Hello, Miami fans. Brian Smith back with another recruiting edition about the Hurricanes. A few notes as we get really close to the beginning of fall camp and all the different press conferences and everything. Recruiting does not stop, and that's in a couple of different ways. And I'll grab a few points for this podcast that are pretty basic, but also very important. To that, there's only three things that I wrote down on my note sheet, just as a reminder for myself. Patience is number one. I say that quite often on this podcast and others. Two is Lawayne McCoy. There's a lot of talk about him. I'll get into that. And then the third one is it's kind of the general point right now because the recruiting calendar is just completely done an about face over the last 2 to 3 years. And this is something that is updated periodically and needs to be discussed. August 1st represents the very first day that college coaches can make a phone call directly, not that they don't because a lot of schools cheat, but whatever, to college prospective student athletes, meaning high school juniors, class of 25, the 24 kids they've been talking to. That's a different deal. But these are kids are going to be juniors. They can get phone calls on August 1st. You say, it's way down the road. Very important time. I cannot possibly remotely put it into perspective how important that is. I'll get to that last. But in that order, number one, patience. Miami is, I believe, at 18 commitments. And to be honest, I hope they don't really get that many more anytime soon. And you're like, what do you mean? It's not if you get commitments, it's the players that are being added to your commitment list. So most of the key players that they're after, like Kamarion Franklin, Jeremiah Smith, etc., I don't expect many of them to make a final decision until way down the line. It is what it is. What I do as it relates to Miami and following, I'm still going to. There's going to be kids that pop up, etc., take unofficial visits. Final decisions, meaning I'm not taking any more calls, not taking more visits to anybody else. I don't expect hardly any really to happen between now and December. That's just honest to God truthfulness. And I'm not helping myself with that because a lot of people won't tune in, but it's just true. I'm never going to lie on this podcast. I expect Miami to continually recruit. Nothing really changed with 24 kids. But again, patience, because most of the guys that haven't decided by now, there's a few exceptions, but most of them are going to wait it out now. It's just the nature of the beast. So Miami fans, like any other fan base, Alabama, USC, whatever, need to understand that. Second thing, Lawayne McCoy is one of the guys that, at least depending on what you believe, the wide receiver out of Miami Central could flip from Florida State to Miami. I have no idea. I've heard that. Numerous people have talked about it. Is it true? Is it going back and forth? All of that you probably have about as much insight to as I do. I haven't talked to Lawayne in a while, and it's not like he's going to give me any insight anyway. When it's a situation like this, generally speaking, it'll be a last-second deal. When it's going to pop, when it's going to happen, I have no idea. And he's a South Florida kid, which I always say on this podcast and will continue to do, are very, very fickle. Timing, how they feel is about as fluid as a glass of water. So I expect McCoy to pick between Florida State and Miami, but that's another one. Even if he does not make a decision now, it really doesn't matter. Why? Do you think Florida State would stop recruiting him if he flipped to Miami? Hell no. And they shouldn't. He's a great football player. Can play flanker, can play slot, kick return, punt return, has phenomenal hands, make you miss, speed over the top. He's got all the intangibles you're looking for to be a receiver. Of course they're not. So this is a recruitment, while it may change in the short term, potentially speaking, don't think that recruitment is over regardless of what Lawayne McCoy does. That is going to be a signing day deal in my book, no matter what. Finally, and again, this is a very important point. I could do a 10-hour podcast on this and it wouldn't be enough. Players pick an institution based on the coaches. If you've followed this podcast at all, you've heard me say that. Today is no different on that. It is a big deal that you get a relationship with the kid as early as you can. That's why I've even heard a coach recently say sometimes kids get offers early just so you can get in the game because they get ticked off if you don't offer early, even if it's not justified. But those offers aren't really committable. It's a BS game both directions. people are very thin-skinned about it. Why didn't you offer me early? Well, it's because we didn't think you're good enough is the answer. But kids don't want to hear that. So coaches want to wait as long as they can to offer, but it's awkward. So the committable game and all that stuff aside, the key thing you can do regardless of whether you've offered is to call the kid. August 1st, 2025 class, their phones are going to be ringing. Miami and every other school in the country has an opportunity to make a connection. That first phone call when it's, just everybody knows they're coming. If you do not build a relationship from that moment forward, your chances significantly go down to land that kid because they're going to remember the first call. They may not remember the fourth or the fifth or whatever, but that first one they're going to remember. South Florida kid, LA kid, Chicago kid, doesn't matter. First call is very important. Now, to that point, I say this a lot, and I've never had a fan of a team comment on it because I know they don't like it, but it's true. It's not about the logo you wear on your polo. It's the person wearing the polo. That's why that phone call is so important. They may not even remember the name of the school, but they'll be like, Coach John, he's the coach at, I have guys say that to me, like Johnson's, whatever the name of the guy is. They'll remember the person more than the school. And that's how the school ends up signing players. Relationship, relationship, relationship. It's the top three things, and you can make it infinite. It's about the coach, not the school. So Miami has a chance to get a leg up. A lot of the kids that they recruit, obviously, as the 24 class has shown, are pretty local. They do a pretty good job of picking around Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade for kids that are not only good, but can survive in college, the whole 9 yards. I think this staff has done a good job with that. There's no reason to believe they wouldn't with the class of 25, which, by the way, is better than 24 nationally and in the state of Florida. So I think there's a pretty good chance that we're going to see a little bit of an uptick in how much effort Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal and Jason Taylor, the entire staff, goes after the class of 25 and in state. That's something, I don't know which ones. There are a handful that are obvious, but it's not worth really getting into. Just note that this is a very important time coming up. So the preparation they do now, like even honestly, while some of them are on vacation, this is the time of year that guys do that. If you follow like Alex Mirabal, he's been posting pictures from all over on his vacation with family and stuff. But it's really unique because if you don't come in prepared what to say, what to talk about, again, that relationship, that first phone call, it may not go so well. Miami's no different than anybody else. They have to make sure that first phone call goes well. And I'm curious to see which kids they target too. Just from a college football fan, forget that I cover Miami here and on all Hurricanes. That's a very important note. So anyway, please like this podcast. Please subscribe. Please make sure you hit that notification bell. And as I always note, please comment. What do you want to talk about with regards to Miami? Is there another player you want to discuss? Is it something about the 2023 schedule? Is it something regarding the opportunity to talk about a specific player they're still after? I'm game. Let's talk about it. So with that, everybody have a great day, and thank you very much.